Welcome all of you to this Signals and Systems course. Today being the very first lecture, we'll discuss about this course and the syllabus, CIF of the course and the books to be followed. The books that you need to follow for this course are, you can refer two books. The first one is Signals and Systems by Oppenheim. Second one is, again, the title is Signals and Systems by Simon Haken. You can practice the numerical part of this course from Oppenheim. It's a very nice book. Now coming to the syllabus of this course, there are total 5 units. Unit 1 is Introduction to Signals and Systems. In which we'll discuss about different types of signals, their properties, various operations that can be performed over a signal, and after that we'll discuss about the different types of systems. Then unit 2 is your continuous time and discrete time LTI system. This continuous time and discrete time LTI system. LTI stands for linear time invariant system. While doing this unit, I'll tell you the importance of LTI system. LTI systems basically are one of the most commonly encountered systems in case of communication scenario, you can say. So this is the reason these LTI systems are of prime importance for analysis part. Unit 3 is Fourier analysis. Wherein you will study about Fourier series and Fourier transform. Fourier transform. Fourier series and Fourier transform are basically your mathematical tool to deal with different types of signals and to convert a time domain signal to a frequency domain for getting a better insight of the signal. And then coming to unit 4. Unit 4 is based on the sampling. Sampling is one of the most important process while digitization of a continuous time signal or analog signal to a digital signal. And the last unit, which is unit 5, is Laplace transform and Z transform. And Z transform. So these are the 5 units that we are going to study in this course. Before midterm, unit 1 will be covered totally. Unit 2 will also be covered. And a part of unit 3, that is still Fourier series, will be covered before midterm. And after midterm, the rest of the course will be covered. Now a little bit about this course. As I've already mentioned you in my introductory mail that Signal and System is the most basic course for any communication engineering domain student. It is the most basic course, especially for communication engineering It is actually a prerequisite to all the communication-oriented subjects like principles of communication, digital signal processing, information theory coding, wireless communication, modern digital communication, cooperative communication. All these courses will be encountered in your, will be coming in your future semesters. Some of the courses for which signal and system is a prerequisite are principles of communication, digital communication, information theory and coding, and then digital signal processing, then wireless communication, and then modern digital communication, cooperative communication, and there are several other electives also in which signals and system will act as a prerequisite. So it's a very important course for all the students of ECE and CCE background. And the reason being is that in the last decade, you can see that in the last decade and also in the coming decades, you will find that the wireless communication industry is predicted to be one of the fastest growing industry in the world. Thus, if you are looking for a career in this ever-growing industry, then the above-mentioned subjects are of really great importance to you. We'll begin with Unit 1, which is Introduction to Signals in Systems. In this unit, basically, we'll discuss the different types of signals, their properties, various operations that can be performed over a signal, and then further we'll move on to the systems. All right. So we'll begin with some basic definitions. How can we define a signal? So signals are basically defined as the physical quantity. So signals are nothing defined as a physical quantity which can be represented mathematically and varies with time, space, or any other independent variable or variables. Space or any other independent variable. Or you can say a combination of variables. So while defining a signal, we need to keep in mind that it's a physical quantity first of all, which can be represented mathematically, and it varies with respect to an independent variable. So these are the some important features of a signal. Next, let us define systems. Systems, on the other hand, is an entity that processes a set of input signals. It is an entity that processes the set of input signals to yield another set of output signals. Another set of output signals. So basically, a system is an entity in which we give input as a set of a signal which is being processed in the system, and the output is given as some byte. So signals are basically processed by a system which can modify them or extract additional information from them. We can additionally define system as signals can be processed by systems which may modify them or extract additional information from them. So this is how we define a signal and a system. Signals are basically physical quantity which can be represented mathematically, and they vary with respect to an independent variable or a combination of variables. That's it. And systems, on the other hand, are entity which processes the set of input signals and yield another set of output signals. We give as input a set of input signals which are processed by that system, and we get output as another set of signals. Now next we move on to the classification of signals. So one of the broad classification of signal is we can distinguish signal as continuous time signal or discrete time signal. These are the you can say the most broadest classification of signals. We can either classify them as continuous time or discrete time signals. Let us see one by one what do we mean by continuous time and discrete time signal. See, a continuous time signal, or we also call it as analog signal. It can be defined as a it can be defined for a continuous value of independent variable time, and yeah, the conventional notation is x of t. Any continuous time signal is defined with respect to the variable continuous time variable t. So a continuous time signal, or we also call it as analog signal, is defined for the continuous values of the independent variable which is t, time t. Continuous values means the infinite number of values of the independent variable t. On the other hand, the discrete time signals is defined only for discrete time, and consequently for discrete time signals the independent variable takes only discrete set of values. That is, a discrete time signal is defined only for discrete time instants. Let us denote the discrete time instants by n. So, so consequently, the discrete time signals can be denoted as x of n. This is the conventional notation of a discrete time signal x of n. The independent variable here is discrete in nature and denoted by n. On the other hand, the conventional notation of continuous time signal is x of t, where the independent variable t is continuous in nature. Another important point in case of discrete time signal is that the amplitude of the discrete time signal between two time instants is not defined. You can see the graphical representation of the both the continuous time signal and the discrete time signal here. You can see the independent variable time t is continuous in nature. That means xt has a value for all the time instants t, all the infinite time instants t. On the other hand, in the case of the discrete time signal x of n, the value of signal x of n is present only at discrete time instant, that is at -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this is your continuous time signal, and this is the representation of your discrete time signal. We can take some real life examples based on continuous time signal and the discrete time signal, which can be like the speech signal as a function of time x as a what continuous time signal. So speech signal is an example of a continuous time signal. On the other hand, the number of runs scored in a cricket match, the number of runs scored in a cricket match with respect to the balls can act as a discrete time signal, isn't it? So this was the broad classification of the signals, which is continuous time signal and discrete time signal. The difference between the two is that in case of continuous time signal, the independent variable time t is continuous in nature or have infinite values. On the other hand, discrete time signal, in case of discrete time signal, the independent variable n here has discrete set of values. Moving on, let us see some transformation of independent variables and how it affects the signals. Transformation of independent variable, which is time. So there are three different types of transformations that can happen for the independent variable, that is time. First one is time shifting. Second one is time scaling. And the third one is time reversal, or we also call it as folding. So these are the three different transformations that can take place over a signal. The first one, let's discuss the first one, which is time shifting. Let us assume a continuous time signal x of t and a discrete time signal x of n. Okay, so we can say that the signal xt or xn may be shifted in time if we replace the independent variable t by t minus t naught. Similarly, if we replace, in case of discrete time signal, replace n by n minus n naught. So yes, the time shifting takes place when the independent variable t or n is replaced by t minus t naught or n minus n naught. With t naught is your shifting factor. That means the shift is by the factor of t naught. So there can be conditions that t naught is greater than 0 or t naught can be less than 0. So when t naught is greater than 0, in that case, the signal is shifted towards right. Signal is shifted towards right. Always remember, when t naught is greater than 0, signal is shifted towards right, or we can say that the time shift results in the delay of the signal. Obviously, if in the time domain the signal is shifting towards right, that means there's a delay in the signal, or we can say that time shift results in the delay of signal. And for the case when t naught is less than 0, always remember signal is shifted towards left on time domain axis, or we can say that the time shift results in advance of the signal. Time shift results in the advancement of signal. Let us look at this phenomena with the help of an example. This time shifting phenomena. Let us say we have a signal x of t, any arbitrary signal x of t in continuation. So x of t minus t naught will be something like this. If we assume t naught to be a positive entity, so the same signal is now shifted towards right, and the shift is by a factor of t naught. Similarly, if the t naught is less than 0, then that means it becomes x of t plus t naught. We find the signal is shifted towards the left on the time domain axis, and the shift is again by the factor t naught. The same example we can have for a discrete time signal. Let us say we have a discrete time signal x of n. Let's say this is a signal x of n, and a shifted version of the signal, that is x of n minus of n naught, will be the same signal x of n shifted towards right when n naught is a positive quantity. That means something like this, and the shift is by a factor of n naught. Similarly, if n naught is a negative quantity, that is the signal becomes n plus n naught, the shift of this signal will be towards the left on the discrete time axis, something like this. And the shift will be again by a factor of n naught here. So this is the first type of operation, which is the time shifting operation, in which the independent variable time t is replaced by t minus t naught, or the discrete time variable n is replaced by n minus n naught, and depending on the polarity of the shifting factor, that is t naught and n naught, the signal is shifted towards right or left on the time domain axis. Moving on to the next type of operation, that is your time scaling operation. Second one is time scaling. In case of time scaling transformation, let us assume the same signals x of t and x of n. The independent variable t, or you can say n, is replaced by a scaled version of the same. That is, t can be replaced by a of t, and similarly n can be replaced by a of n. And this results into the scaling of time, where a is your scaling factor. A is your scaling factor that will decide the scaling of the signal. So now there can be two scenarios when a is greater than 1. When the a is greater than 1, the scaling results into compression or speeded up operation, we can say. When a is greater than 1, you can say that the scaling results in compression, or you can say speeded up operation. The second scenario can be when a lies between 0 to 1. In this case, the scaling results in expansion or slowed down operation. Thus, in case of time scaling transformation, we are assuming here two scenarios. That is, the scaling factor a is greater than 1, or if it lies between 0 to 1. We are not assuming the scenario when a is less than 0, or you can say a is negative. We are not analyzing this scenario in time scaling of transformation. And the reason is that we look at the same scenario in time reversal transformation. Let us analyze this time scaling transformation with the help of an example. Let us assume a similar kind of signal, arbitrary signal x of t, the continuous time signal that lies from -1 to +1. And what will happen to the signal if we scale the independent variable from t to twice of t? That is, scaling is from t to twice of t. Okay, now the scaling factor here is 2, which is greater than 1. So we have seen that when e is greater than 1, the scaling results in compression or speeded up operation, and the compression will take place in the order of the scaling factor, which is 2 here. Okay, so the signal will be now compressed. That means it will span from now, instead of -1 to +1 to -1/2 to +1/2. So this is how the time scaling operation takes place when the value of a is greater than 1. The signal compresses. So this operation is compression, and the compression takes place by the factor of 2, which is the scaling factor. Alright. Now if we look at the other scenario, that is expansion scenario, or you can say the scaling is of order, let's say 1/2. We are scaling the independent variable time t by 1/2. In that case, the signal expands. This is x of t/2, and the expansion takes place in the order of the scaling. So now the signal will span instead from -1 to +1 to -2 to +2. So this is how the time scaling operation takes place. The third type of transformation over independent variable is time reversal, in which the independent variable t is replaced by minus of t, and this results in the operation of folding, or you can say reflection or time reversal. We can call it by multiple names, that is folding or reflection or time reversal. And all the three, these folding, reflection or reversal, takes place at the origin, that means at time t is equal to 0. The time reversal reverses, or you can say reflects the signal, taking t is equal to 0 as the axis point. Let us understand this transformation with the help of an example. Let's say we have a signal x of t, something like this, any continuous time, arbitrary. let us mark these points 1 and 2. Okay, let's say this is the continuous time signal x of t, and now let us analyze x of minus t signal. That is, transformation takes place by replacing t to minus t. Let us analyze t of x of minus t signal here. X of minus t will be the reversed version of the signal xt, and the reversal takes place keeping origin as the axis. X of minus t will look like something. So you can compare x of t with x of minus t. It is the reflection of the signal, reversal of the signal at the axis t is equal to 0. The similar kind of scenario will also occur in the discrete time signal. Now, having studied all the three types of the transformation, that is time shifting, scaling, and time reversal, now comes the most important thing, that is the combined operations of all the three transformations. Let's analyze the combined operation, how that affects the signal. We've seen the individual effects. Now let us see the combined operations. Let us directly analyze this combined operation with the help of examples. Let's take a simple example that we have a signal x of t, amplitude is 1, and we need to find out the signals, that is x of 3t plus 2 and x of minus 2t minus 1. So for this given signal x of t, we need to apply the following transformation. You can clearly see that in both the transformation, it is not a single transformation, rather it is combination of multiple transformations. Here you can see in the first case, it is plus 2. Plus 2 refers to scaling, shifting, time shifting. Okay, and 3t stands for scaling, you can say. So clearly this comprises of your scaling plus shifting. And in the second scenario, you can see minus 1 refers to shifting, then 2t that refers to the scaling, and the minus sign with respect to the independent variable t refers to the reversal. So this consists of all the three operations, that is scaling, reversal, and shifting. Now let us see how do we analyze the combined operations. Let us first take the case of x of 3t plus 2. Okay. Whenever you get any combined operation problem, in that case you can do, there are two options, two ways to implement those. First one, and the most convenient and the easy way, is we start from the right end and we look at all the transformations available. So when we start from right side, the first transformation we can see is plus 2, right, which is your shifting operation, and shifting is the plus 2. So let us do the shifting, and if we do plus 2 shifting, the signal move towards your left of the time domain axis. Two minus 3 minus 1, this is 1, right. So now we have applied the first transformation, which is coming from right side, that is plus 2 shifting operation. We have shifted the signal, this signal x of given xt signal, by 2, by a factor of 2 towards right. Now moving on, the next operation you can see here is scaling operation. Scaling by a factor of 3. A is greater than 1 here, A is 3 here, A is equal to 3. That means now the operation that will take place is compression. Okay. So now we apply the compression over this signal. Okay. So the signal will be now compressed, and the compression will be by factor of 3. It becomes minus 2 by 3. This becomes minus 1 by 3. This becomes minus 3 by 3. The amplitude remains unchanged, that is 1. So there is no more operation after this. These were the only two operations. These were the only two operations, shifting operation and the scaling operation. And since we are moving from right, the first operation coming is plus 2, and the second operation that is coming is scaling by 3. So this is the final signal, that is x of 3t plus 2. So this is the first method. So this is the first method in which we can implement a combined transformation. The first method is when we start the implementation from the right hand side. We can implement the transformation one by one. So in this case, the first transformation was shifting operation by plus 2. So we did the same. We implemented the shifting operation by plus 2 over this signal x of t, which resulted in this signal. We can name this signal as x1 of t. Okay, and then further, if we move from this towards left, the next operation is scaling operation, and the scaling is by a factor of 3. So again, we apply the scaling operation over the signal x1t. So this will result into the compression of the signal, and this will give us the final signal as there are no more operations involved. Now let us see the second method. Okay, the required transformation is x of 3t plus of 2. The second method is we can move from left to right. Okay, so in this method we need to make sure that the independent time variable t should not be a scaled version of anything. Okay, so we need to simplify this a bit. We'll take 3 as common, so this will result into t plus 2 by 3. So after doing this simplification, we can implement the transformations one by one. Now we can move from left to right. The first operation that we encounter is scaling. The scaling is by a factor of 3. So if the original signal, we take the same signal x of t, which spans from -1 to 1. So scaling by 3 will result into compression of signal. That means 1 by 3 to -1 by 3 to 1 by 3. Let's say this is x1 of t. Now the second operation we encounter is here shifting by 2 by 3. Okay, so that will move shift the signal towards the left. The shifting operation will be performed over this x1t. So it becomes, let us mark these points. We move this entire signal x1t by a factor of 2 by 3 towards left. So this point will become -1 by 3, and this will become -3 by 3, and this will become -2 by 3. Amplitude remains same, so this becomes x of 3t plus 2 by 3, which is nothing but x of 3t plus 2. So you can verify from here that the result obtained from second method is exactly the same as the result obtained from the first method. So you can adopt any of the two methods, but the most commonly used and the convenient method is this one. That is, we move from right to left, because that does not involve any initial transformations required. Now let us also implement the second scenario, which was x of minus 2t minus 1 over the same signal, that is this minus 1 to 1 x of t. Let us first implement it using the first method. So first operation is, if we move from left to right, right to left, the first operation is the shifting operation. Shifting, and the shift is the minus 1. So that means the signal will shift towards right on the time domain. So if we apply the shifting by 1, by a factor of 1, so the signal becomes this. This means the signal is x1t. Now if we move further, the second operation that is encountered here is scaling. Scaling by a factor of 2. Scaling by a factor of 2, that is greater than 1, means compression of signal. So let us compress the signal x1t. Sorry. 0, 1 by 2 and 2 by 2. Okay, we compressed it by the factor of 2. Okay. Now if we move further, the next operation present over here is this time reversal. Okay, so now let us apply time reversal over the latest signal, which is x2t. Time reversal results into the reflection or folding of the signal around the origin axis. This, and if we look at further, there is no more operations left. There were 3 operations involved, that is shifting, scaling and time reversal. All the 3 operations are present into this. So this will finally give us the resultant signal, which is x of minus 2t, x of minus 2t minus 1. And the same thing you can implement using the second method. That is when we move from left to right. But in this method, we have to initially do some processing, that is, we'll take minus 2 common, t plus 1 by 2. The purpose is that the independent variable should not be scaled by anything. Okay, now we can implement all the transformations one by one, moving from left to right. And at the end, you will find that the end result, that is x of minus 2t minus 1, is same for both the methods. So I would suggest that you prefer the first method, as the chances of error are less in case of this, as compared to the second method, where we need to perform some initial process also. So thank you so much. That is all for this video. In the coming video, we'll discuss about the different types of signal and their properties and different operations that can be performed over those signals. We'll have a live session tomorrow, that is 6th of August, where we'll have a brief revision of the topics covered in this video, and we'll take up the queries if you have any. Thank you.